Hi everybody, it's Dr. Fiona. Today's video is going to be very interesting. Can penis size really be predicted by measuring the size of a man's nose? I mean, wow! If this is true, half of the women's problem regarding their needs has solved. So, is there any scientific evidence? Well, according to some recent research, there might be a connection. So, let's break it down and see what science has to say. For years, there have been myths and stereotypes suggesting that certain body parts, like feet or hands, might indicate the size of a man's penis. Some of you might have seen my video about penis size and finger length. It explains that the ratio of your second, index, and fourth ring fingers is linked to penis size. Actually, this connection is related to the exposure to testosterone before birth. Testosterone is the hormone that determines if we become a boy or a girl, and it is present even before we are born, specifically between weeks 10 to 15 of pregnancy. This initial surge of testosterone is crucial because it influences further development. The same principle applies to the size of the nose. Men's noses are generally larger than women's, because males have more lean muscle mass, which requires more oxygen for muscle tissue growth and maintenance. It also explains why we have smaller noses than our ancestors. In 2021, a Japanese research group published a study that hasn't gained much attention yet. This study is part of a long history of research into penile length and its related factors in men. The researchers analyzed post-mortem Japanese men, meaning they studied deceased individuals. Their goal was to identify the best predictor of stretched penile length by comparing various body measurements. They looked at flaccid penile length, not stretched, height, weight, and other measurements. Using a statistical method called linear regression, they analyzed how these measurements could predict stretched penile length. To their surprise, they found that the best predictor of stretched penile length was the flaccid penile length. However, what was really surprising was that the length of a person's nose was almost as good at predicting stretched penile length as the flaccid penile length. Now, how were they able to predict the size but just measuring the nose? Well, first, it's important to understand what correlation means. A correlation indicates a relationship between two variables, but it doesn't necessarily mean one causes the other. So what the researchers found was a significant correlation between nose size and penis length. Specifically, men with larger noses tended to have longer penises when measured in a flaccid and stretched state. Okay. So, before dismissing this as nonsense, let's look at the facts. A scientific correlation is when two things change together in a consistent way. For example, as one thing increases or decreases, the other does too. However, this doesn't mean one causes the other. They just tend to move in a related pattern. The strength of this relationship can vary, being either weak or strong. Look at these graphs. Each dot represents a measurement. At the top, you see penile length, and below, penile girth is shown in relation to nose volume. As you can see, there is a medium correlation. The line on the graph shows the calculated relationship between these two variables. So, if your nose and penis size don't match this pattern, remember these graphs. You might be one of the dots far from the line. This also applies to digit ratio. There were basically two studies. One Korean study that included 1,200 patients at the urology unit. The other one was a cadaver study on 144 corpses that I have talked about earlier. Both studies looked at flaccid and stretched penile length in relation to nose size. Yeah. They also examined stretched length in the cadavers, and both studies revealed the same conclusion. The larger the nose, the larger the penis. Here's how they measured the length of the nose, which was quite interesting. Instead of measuring straight down, they also measured the width. They started from a central point that's consistent across people, the middle of the eye. From there, they measured to one side of the nostril and then to the other side. They took these two line segments, and the longer one was considered the length of the nose. This method allowed them to determine both the length and the width of the nose. Let's call this measurement the nose size. They found that you could predict the true length of a man's penis, specifically the stretched flaccid length, which is a bit longer than the erect length, by looking at their nose size. Remarkably, The accuracy of this prediction was almost as good as if you had seen the person naked. For those interested in numbers, the coefficient for nose size was 0.564, while the coefficient for flaccid length was 0.565. In comparison, the coefficient for height was 0.378. Alright, so after reading the study, I started thinking about people I've heard of having small penises, and many of them had relatively small noses. 'Cause being a urological surgeon, I've seen many penises during my career. What are your thoughts on this topic? Do you think there's more to this correlation, or is it just another myth? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video interesting, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update.